Good morning to everyone, and thank you so much for joining Arqus Universities in this very special day, the International Day of Women and Girls in Science. It is actually the first time that Arqus Universities can celebrate this fundamental important day. We wish to recall the preponderant role played by women and girls in scientific and technical domains, and the fact that their participation should be reinforced. I wish to thank especially the University of Lyon, who's holding the webinar, the whole task force Women to STEM. It's one of the 13 task forces in Action Line 2 in Arqus, and especially Marion Sagnard, who's the leader of this task force and who has actually organized the webinar. So Marion, the floor is yours to introduce our guests. Thank you.
Thank you, Benedetta. So I'm very glad to welcome you as well in this webinar organized on the occasion of the International Day for Women and Girls in Science. We are welcoming today 6 speakers from 4 institutions of the Alliance: Granada, Graz, Lyon, Saint-Etienne, and Padua. And I'm quickly introducing the program of this morning that we'll spend together. So as you saw, I guess you all read the program, and the first part of the webinar is dedicated to the promotion of STEM in girls students. So first of all, Stéphane Gaussent, who's a professor at the Department of Mathematics at the Faculty of Sciences and Techniques of the Université Jean Monnet, part of Lyon Saint-Etienne University. He's also the executive officer for Blaise Pascal Foundation. Then Silvia Precio, who's the head of guidance and tutoring unit of the University of Padua and also member of this task force Women to STEM. And Nuria Rico, who's professor in statistics and deputy director of the Free Software Office of the University of Granada. I think it's it. So Stefan, Silvia, and Nuria will present 3 examples of good practices promoting STEM in secondary school students in their universities. Then we'll do a short break just to have a cup of tea and everything we need. And Professor Lisa Scher, a specialist in gender studies and equal opportunities, will introduce the anti-bias circle from the University of Graz. And Professor Philip Spitzer from the University of Graz also will describe how prototypes influence a chemistry-related career choice of girls and boys. And finally, Professor Silvana Badaloni will present a gender equality index in academic institutions based on a University of Padua's experience. And I'd like to do just some remarks before starting. So we are expected a lot of participants and we won't have time to answer all questions. I'm sorry. So if you have any question, please use the chat. Gustavo is going to manage to save them, and we can send them to the speakers afterwards. Also, please, for the participants, you should turn off your microphone because you know how it works in the webinars. And this webinar is recorded and might be used on the Arqus website. So if you don't wish to appear in the video, please just turn off your camera as well. And I think that's it. We can start now with the first part of this webinar and with our first speakers.
2 words about Arqus. For those who may not be familiar with Arqus, we are one of the 17, the first 17 alliances selected by the European Commission in 2019. The 7 universities are Bergen, Granada, Graz, Leipzig, Lyon, Padua, and Vilnius. And we have established a multilateral alliance We are 7 long-standing comprehensive research universities, and we share not only an extensive experience, but the common aim to advance towards deeper European integration. In Arqus, there's a specific action line, the one I'm chairing, Action Line 2, Widening Access, Inclusion and Diversity. Especially there because since its inception, the Arqus Alliance has agreed to put people at the center of its mission, as it is actually reflected in the mission statement. And enabling people has been identified as a leitmotif, as a fil rouge within and for the Alliance, and is actually one of our major defined goals for 2025. Action Line 2 has 13 activities, which I may call define as actions because they are very wide and challenging and innovative. One of them is Women to STEM. It is precisely the topic we're going to talk about today. And why Women to STEM is in Action Line 2. Because despite the significant improvements made in recent decades, I'm sorry, I have to cancel this from my screen, okay. Despite significant improvements made in recent decades, education is not yet universally available and gender inequalities are widespread at the expense of girls, of women. There are social, cultural, and economic factors affecting not only girls' opportunities to go to school, but also the quality of education itself, the studies they will follow, and ultimately their careers and life paths. As you can see here, with 67.9 out of 100 points, the Gender Equality Index 2020 points out that this index has increased by only 4.1 points since 2010 and 0.5 points since 2017. And this, of course, says that we have still a long way to go. We are actually nowadays facing a learning crisis, which is leading to a skills crisis. The intensive use of digital resources, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, has actually shown how we should reconsider the future of education towards an equal future. So this is a moment of change, and efforts have to be made to prepare girls and young women to equally participate in the workforce, including in STEM fields, and we need to accelerate this process. How? Through a gender-responsive STEM education, which has actually a transformative potential. And we can actually deliver in such a way the promise of girls' education and empowerment agenda in the 21st century. Of course, failure to invest in girls' STEM education will forfeit the economic potential of half the population of the world. But it's not only an economic issue we are talking about, it's also an intellectual, a cultural loss, the one we are at risk now. And it's also a very matter of social justice. In fact, STEM education is meant as an accelerator of the 2030 UN Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals. Leaving out girls and women from STEM education and professions not only deprives them the opportunity to contribute and benefit from STEM, but also perpetuates the gender gap and wider social and economic inequalities, which we don't want. We have policies in Europe, a lot of them. Actually, I'm not an expert on the subject, but I was surfing a lot through the internet and all this scientific literature and European recommendations on the topic. And I was really even bewildered about how much has been done in the last 15 years. We have, for example, the Gender Equality Strategy 2020-2025. We have also heard Ursula von der Leyen's speech and message during the 2020 Women's Forum Global Meeting, actually saying that we need a digital recovery, but a true recovery has to be inclusive. And that means that women have to enjoy the very same opportunities as men. And the European Union will actually invest in programs that will encourage more girls and women towards STEM education. Fortunately, we have, for example, 41% of scientists and engineers who are women in Europe. But when she was saying, when you look at the workers in high-tech manufacturing, you see that 4 out of 5 are still men. So we have still a long way to go. And she congratulated the forum about the STEM Key initiative, which they have launched, which she defined as great. And so the final message was, if not now, then when? We also have investments and incentives. Let's only recall the Horizon 2020, who actually focused on closing the gender gaps in research and innovation. But we have a lot of literature, a lot of articles about experts on the subject, actually pointing out that the presence of girls and women in STEM and STEM research, for example, is fundamental because it involves the integration of a gender perspective into the preparation, design, implementation, monitoring and evaluation of policies, measures and spending programs, and that view cannot be missed, cannot be left. We have Horizon Europe, we have Next Generation EU focusing on the same topic. So basically we have everything we actually need. There are lots of studies, and of course the experts we are going to listen to today will tell us a lot about research and also best practices on the topic. But what I found very interesting in this study, why Europe's girls aren't studying STEM, it was the unique insight found by this 2017 Europe-focused research, which was that most girls become interested in STEM at the age of 11 and a half, although most of them lose interest by age 15. So this, what is suggesting that early interventions are needed to sustain girls' interest in these fields. For example, another finding was that interest, which is linked to self-efficacy and a sense of belonging as well, play an important role in girls' engagement in STEM at school, in their subject choices in higher education, and even in their career plans. So what I'm saying is that we have a narrow 4-year window of opportunity to foster girls' passion in STEM subjects in Europe. This study actually pointed out other main findings, like, for example, the country where young women live has a major impact on their attitudes to STEM. Sometimes confidence is a major barrier, while in other countries, peer approval or lack of role models is also holding them back mostly. And there are 5 major drivers impacting girls' interest in STEM subjects, like encouragement, mentorship, gaining practical experiences, and having visible role models. So it's interesting that nowadays girls believe anything is possible, but only if they are treated the same as boys. So women nowadays, young women, are confident that their generation is the first one where men and women will be truly equal in all areas of society. But they also say that men and women are treated differently in STEM jobs. And that, I think, has to be taken into maximum consideration. We have other very comprehensive studies. I'm really astonished. I was really surprised about saying how much has been done by UNICEF, UNESCO, the European Institute for Gender Equality. For example, this study actually has identify the factors influencing girls and women's participation, progression, and achievement in STEM education, from the individual level factors, biological, psychological, to the family and peer level factors, to the school and societal level factors. And not only identify the factors influencing, but also the interventions that we actually should implement to help increase girls and women's interest in and engagement with STEM education, from the individual and family level, peer level again, the school level again, and the societal level in the end. So what we have to keep in mind, and we are trying to keep in mind as Action Line 2 and Task Force 2.3 Women to STEM, is that we need a STEM education to disrupt unequal gender norms. We have to share positive messages about their STEM abilities with girls and young women. We have to expose them to female role models and provide them with opportunities as much as boys to engage, for example, with STEM toys from childhood and then activities. We have to, and this, if we do that, this in turn will disrupt the harmful gender norms that lead girls to doubt about their competence in STEM. Of course, universities can actively do that, promoting girls' access to STEM studies, and we hope that by doing that, these norms could start finally to disappear. And that's why we come and we are working as Action Line 2. As you can see, this is an overview of what we are aiming to do in the 3 year project. Women to STEM is on the left-hand side of this graphics. You see in the pre-university part of our mission and vision and architecture of Action Line 2. So a lot has been done so far by Action Line 2 and Task Force 2.3 Women to STEM. We know that several partners already have initiatives up and running to address the issue of the low number of young women attracted and entering STEM disciplines worldwide. And you'll hear about that in this interesting morning. And through the Arqus portal, in the end, these initiatives will be shared with the partners. And also, we hope to give further guidelines and innovative models for further local action as well. Not only, we have a charter, a common charter for gender equality, one for inclusion and one for SDGs, which of course will be the basis of the whole topic we are discussing today. So as you can see on the right-hand side, we have already the initial report. Marion, thank you very much again for having collected everything the task force members have sent you about all the best practices we have already in the Alliance, within the Alliance. We are also planning to have more webinars or training events like today. We are planning to develop materials which will be finally uploaded in the Arqus portal. And we hope that we can actually continue to participate actively in regional, national, and European campaigns involving leading women scientists and engineers as role models, like today in this incredibly important International Day of Women and Girls in Science. Thank you so much and have a nice webinar.
Thank you very much, Benedetta, for this presentation, and thank you for the timing. So we can now start with Stefan presentation. Stefan, if you're ready, you can share your screen.
So hello again. I should be sharing it normally. And I want to talk about best practice that we do in Lyon, Saint-Etienne, but also in France. But before I want to talk about me, not to put me in front, but to say that I am a professor of mathematics in Saint-Etienne, and where I learned math, I did a PhD, etc. Well, and I was not really, well, I saw that there are very few women in research in mathematics, and very, very few professor in pure mathematics in France. there are actually 2 professors in pure mathematics in France, and I know both of them. So it's very few. So this is well, at that time I didn't know that it was an instance of the glass ceiling that also occurs in research in mathematics. But then I become involved in this Blaise Pascal Foundation, and this foundation is there to promote, foster, and popularization of mathematics and computer science for all the people in France. It's a French foundation. It was born in 2016, and the founders are CNRS, Université de Lyon, and INRIA. And so we are trying to change the perception and attract young people, and to have a focus on women, and then also to bring money from the company to popularizing science. So little by little, I get to know a lot of companies in France, like Soprasteria, and also big companies like Google, Amazon, etc. And they are facing really a big problem in this digital area of companies. They don't have women. It's like 15%, or I don't know exactly the number, but well, there are very few. And the women, they don't stay in the company. They are very often go to other things because they don't feel good. I mean, there are a lot of reasons. Benedetta talked a little bit about it. And so it changed my perception also. And I realized that, yes, there is a big problem. And well, for research in math, it might not be a big problem that there are not women. Well, why not? Research in math is not that important. But for application of research in math and application of computer science, this is a very big problem. And this is what I want now to point, just some reality, some facts. So I've learned looking at also webs, etc. So in the US, among the 1,500 biggest companies, there are more CEOs named John than women running the company. So there are not only more men, but also more men named John. So this is very amazing, and I mean, very shocking also. And so I also wanted to talk about me, because I think it's also very important that men also goes into the problem and also tackle that problem. And I say, okay, women, you are welcome in our research or area of work. So the only, for research in math, the first and the only woman to won the 5th medal is Mariam Mirzakhani, who was deceased in 2017, unfortunately. But there is only one, like the equivalent of the Nobel Prize in mathematics. So there are very few. And in France, to come back to our topic, the girls are almost half in the high school, in the last high school class in terminale scientifique, as we said. But then we only recover 28% in STEM studies in the university. So there is a very loss. And then why should, this is a big problem. And why should we care, as I said? Because if we don't have half of the population in this research area, like mathematics or computer science, yes, there will be a problem. Like somebody talked about the car crash and the airbag, etc. problem, but there's also problem in translating. The translators, they do mistakes using intelligence, and also facial recognition. Well, it's not a very big problem if you don't recognize things, but if the states are using facial recognition and then they don't really recognize women, then it's a big problem. So I come back to the Blaise Pascal Foundation. We have a lot of projects that we help, financially help. So it's a bit in French, but I don't want to spend too many times on this. It's to show the several things that we can do, and also to address our different ages of the girls. So for example, there's this C-arm thing. It's in Brest, and it's aiming at girls in schools, in ordinary school, before college and lycée. There in Lyon, we have a Maison des Mathématiques et de l'Informatique doing the action that I will talk about, girls, math, and computer bright equation. This action was initiated by Femmes and Mathématiques, and there are also a lot of things. We also have this prologuing things, which is girls can code a computer concourse. Okay, so there are a lot of things that are done, and now I want to focus on this action, girls, math, and computers a bright equation, which is in French phi, maths, informatique, and équations lumineuses. So this is something we do at the Fondation Blaise Pascal and also at Université de Lyon with two associations, Animat and Femmes et Mathématiques. And so you have the link, so you can look at, unfortunately it's in French, so you have to read French, but I will talk in English and present it in English, so maybe it can give you the idea of what we do. And well, this was these two associations, as Animat and Femmes et Mathématiques. So Femmes et Mathématiques, it's really their topic. They want to get more women in math. And they started to think like 10 years ago, why so few girls in STEMs? Why so few girls in study in mathematics and computer science? Well, at that time, there was only mathematics, but well, okay. So they say, okay, there are some stereotypes acting, and we have to explain to the girls what stereotypes are. There is also a lack of role model, what was also said by Benedetta, I think. And so identification for the girl to say, okay, and this is a problem that you don't, well, you have to find role models that are not too far away. So if you say to a girl in the suburbs of Lyon, you will be Mariam Mirzakhani, no, there's no chance that I won the 5th medal in mathematics. So it's kind of tricky. And well, there's also a poor knowledge of maths and IT professions, and maybe of STEM profession, but I don't know for other technology and engineering. I'm not that expert, but for math and IT profession, there's a poor knowledge. And this is not only for girls, but for all the people. The people don't know really what are the jobs in computer science, what the jobs you can do after studying computer science in the IT branch. And also for math, you can study math and do a lot of different jobs. So that was the kind of the to bring knowledge of stereotypes. But this is kind of also very tricky, because if you say to a girl, you don't go into math study because you are a victim of stereotypes, she will probably say, no, I made my own choice. So you have to try to explain in a different way. We will see it a bit later. Also meet role models that will bring idea to the, okay, she was like me and now she's doing that and I can also do it. And also better knowledge of the jobs and opportunity. And so how do we do this? We do this by bringing in a day in the life of these girls. And by girls, I mean, this action addresses girls from 13 to 18. For French system, it's quatrième, troisième, seconde, première, and terminale. So it's the high school years. And we bring those girls to universities or to, in France, we have this grande école, or to grande école, to universities, so to say. And like 100 girls or 90 or so, it depends on the university and where it takes place. In Lyon, for example, it's 90 because there is a George, etc. There is first a talk given by a woman who is mathematician or computer scientist, and which is popularizing the science and try to, so this is the first thing you do, because girls in the morning, like we, are more, well, like aware to listen to talk, science talk. Then there is a small workshop on stereotypes, and or it depends on the situation. What is it, what the orientation process, or what you can do by studying math and computer science. Then the girl have lunch together. And after lunch, there is a speed meeting. So this is where they meet role models. So, and we try to have role models of all ages, like from 20, just after the studies, and then senior women working in STEM, or doing studies in math and computer science to tell their courses and to tell these girls that they can do the same. And at the end, and this is the kind of the highlight of the day, there is this forum theater with a company called Labs Équipe du Matin. And this is a play which is given by some actors that is also led by so in the picture we see that this woman is the leader of the play, and she's explaining what will be the play, and she's also looking at the reaction of the girls. And this is a forum theater, meaning that the girls are also asked to react and to play with the actors. So they can, she was saying that it's a girl, which is Emily in this case. Emily says, okay, yeah, you react like that, and what do you think of this situation? And situations are like, yeah, the sport teachers say to a girl, well, your crowd is too short, etc. And then it doesn't have to say that, but why, etc. So girls are reacting, and then they are also coming into the play area to share with the actors and to try to think of something else. And this, I find it very interesting, because it's a play about stereotypes, but it's not saying to the girls, yeah, you are a victim of stereotypes, but they see a character in the play that is victim of stereotype, that is trying to think, what can I do after my high school? I'm good in maths, but I don't know if I will go to this study because etc. And so this is very interesting, and mostly this is what the best part of the day. So what the girl was saying, and this action takes place in Université de Lyon since 2016. So there have been quite a lot, and we try with the Fondation Blaise Pascal I talked about. We try to go and to change the scale and to have this action. Well, it's also in Paris, it's also in some other place, but we think it's really not enough, and we try to promote and foster this action. Okay, but you might tell, well, this is only one day, and it might not be enough. Yeah, it's not enough, but. What do we do? We also give booklets to the girls that they bring to their parents, and explaining what is the study and what are stereotypes, and what that the girls can do work in math or in IT branches, and there's no problem with that. We hope also that the girls and the teachers that attend the day, they come back to their high schools, and then to tell the other person what they saw, and in particular the boys, because this action is only for girls. Only girls are attending the day. And also this is new from this year, well, last year in 2020, there is now a mentoring by women working in maths and IT, or in STEM more generally, for the girls that attend the day, and they can afterwards use a platform called Mattermost to share and to be mentoring by women working in STEM's branch. And well, but we all know that there is a problem with the sanitary crisis now. So this action, this day, is now also online. The next online session, so if you have people talking French, then they can attend the next online session. You click on that link, and then you will be able to subscribe and to register, which is March the 10th. But unfortunately, there is no theater, so that's the kind of the best part, which is not we are not able to do it, and there's less impact on girls. I'm talking now for 10 minutes or something, and then where people can start getting tired, and so this visual thing, the distance thing, is not very good. But in France, we are kind of lucky in this situation, because high schools are still open, and so we can do the day in high school. So if we are French people there, they want to do such a day in their high school, then they just contact us through the links that have been given. And to finish, I want to give you a feedback of one girl that attended the online session, and I think it's a girl from Lebanon. So there was an online session for Lebanese girl that talk French, or are in the French high school in Beirut. And well, I think this action really works and should be fostered. So I thank you for your attention, and I'm open to any question.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Great presentation, precise and everything. Thank you very much. I don't know, Gustavo, did you see any question in the chat? Or does someone has a question? One or two, because the timing is very strict. But if someone has a question, please write it in the chat. No questions. Stefan, will you send me this presentation and can I share it with participants? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. Great, thank you very much. Well, I think we can go with the next presentation from Sylvia. Sylvia, can you try to share your screen?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Just a second. Okay, that's my presentation. Okay, can you see it?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so good morning, everybody, also from my side, and thank you very much to all the colleagues for this opportunity to share with you our experience as University of Padua within this NERD project. My name is Silvia Preciso. I'm the head of the Guidance and Tutoring Unit within the Student Service Office at the University of Padua, and our mission is to support secondary school students, so high school students moving from the high school to the university, or if they decide for another option for their project life, of course, also in this case, we try to be a support to accompany them in their choice. This experience in this project is an example of good practice promoting STEM with female students in the secondary school, and it is a successful project, and I'm very pleased to share this experience with you. So first of all, let's start from the title of the project, which is NERD, with a question mark at the end. And it is in the Italian language an acronym. You may see here the capital letters, and I translated it in Italian, and then I try in English, but the meaning and the sense is not exactly the same. In any case, in Italian it is non è roba per donne, which is something like, are you sure that this is not for women? And for this, we mean ICT, STEAM, disciplines, mathematics, informatics, engineering, and so on. So it is a sort of challenge and also a provocation to people, because we really need to ask ourselves if this is or if it is not for women. Of course, you can imagine the answer is yes. This is absolutely for women, because they can not only be able to afford these kind of disciplines, but they are also, in the most of the cases, very, very successful. So the meaning of this title. There is another point of view related to this title, and I want to discuss this with you, because in the common language, nerd has a precise meaning, and it is really full of stereotypes. We've already spoken about stereotypes, but if we have a quick look in the web, so just Wikipedia or Google, and you look for a description of what a nerd is, you can find something like this. So first of all, a person with very poor social skills, a person who rather prefer to stay alone with no social relation with other people, a person who loves non-popular activities, so boring, so difficult, like mathematics and computer science. But what it is most funny from one side, but also a little bit worrying, is this stereotype related to the appearance. Have a look to the photos. These are the photos I found in the website, just putting the word nerd. So a nerd is associated to a person represented by a well-defined cliché. So thick glasses, no trendy at all in his or her look, faces full of pimples and pustules. Of course, again, the right term is stereotypes. And again, the title of the project is a sort of challenge for the women involved. So first objective, you can do that, you can be successful, but you can be a very nice girl, you can be a very funny girl, you can be a person with social relation. So please try to go beyond these stereotypes, okay? And it was interesting, it was maybe something that happens for just by case, but both the acronym and the meaning are particularly significant for the success of this project. This is a project born by from an idea of IBM. You know, IBM. This is this big international company dealing with ICT in general, and it was born in 2013, precisely within the University of Rome, La Sapienza. And the occasion was the very small number of female students wishing to apply to information engineering degree course. So that was the first occasion to start this project. And nowadays, 15 Italian universities are involved. Padua is also included. And up to now, around 70,000 female students have been involved in this project. As University of Padua, we are currently running the 4th edition of the project, and we started in 2017-18. So the objective, more or less, I guess it is already clear, but which is the target? The target is represented by female students attending the last 3 years of high schools, so students between 16, 17 to 19 years old, and the objective, of course, is to stimulate, first of all, their interest for computer science and digital skills, but more to encourage them to undertake university course in these fields. And the starting point from IBM tutor is creativity. What they suggest, and let me anticipate you that all the program is led by IBM tutors, all females, and most of them engineers or computer scientists. What they suggest to the students is to have particular specific skills in mathematics or engineering, but to try to prove themselves with transversal and soft skills. So they say, if you want to be good computer science, you want to be successful in this field, you need to be very courageous. You need to be able to work in a team with men and women. You need to be adaptable, but most of all, you need to be resilient. And of course, the reason is that definition of nerd doesn't help at all. If you think, oh, I can be a nerd with that description we saw before, of course, you cannot encourage at all to undertake a project or a study path like this one. But how it works? Well, first of all, as university, it's not written here, but I want to share it with you. We promote the project among all the upper secondary school of our region, and we open a call for application. The call for application is supported by the teachers in the schools. Generally, the teachers are involved in orientation career guidance activities. And we collect all the application for the students, and then we involve them in the project. The project includes training meetings and online workshop. The first 3 editions of this project have been face-to-face meetings and training event. Of course, starting from last year, online methods need to be used due to the emergency. And what do they do in these meetings and workshops? They simply learn in a very funny and fast way, because the program includes 4 meetings to design and program apps. So for the first time in their life, they experience a team working in information technology under the supervision of IBM tutors. We have an opening event, which is mainly devoted to the description of the content of the program and on the methods, and also of all the tools that will be used during the program. And then the first and the second laboratory are the real core part of this program, because the focus is creating a chatbot. So girls are requested to create their own chatbot. They are requested to have an idea, to decide the topic, to implement chatbot, and then to produce a final description of this project, illustrating benefits and measure to use this product. The motto is to be innovative, creative, funny, and interesting. So let me say that most of the students really do not know what a chatbot is. So you can imagine how this is a challenge for them, something completely new, but very useful to understand how technology can be used in real life and how in many different occasions it can be very useful. On the occasion of the second laboratory, students may clarify some issues and they have some guided exercise to build the first chatbot. And then they have a quite long period, at least 1 month, during which in small groups they can work together to complete their chatbot. So students are divided in small groups. They are requested to work together to define their plan and then to develop the chatbot. At the end of this program, an ad hoc commission, including EBM experts, will evaluate all the projects, and the criteria are considered are originality, innovation, technological complexity, and based on these criteria, the best projects are selected, and they during the final event there is an award ceremony for these best projects. What is the advantage for the women involved? Of course, the experience, but above this, a final traineeship for the best students within the EBM laboratories, meaning that young students still attending their secondary school will have the opportunity to be within EBM laboratories to practice and to live this experience directly with scientists, engineers, and whatever. And of course, this is a very crucial point that could influence also their decision to undertake a follower path within this subject areas in the university. I have here some example of chatbot, of the most popular chatbot that have been created in the last 4 years. As you can see, there are some, I can say, very funny or just related to everyday life. For example, which look to choose to respect to the mood. So today I'm very happy. How can I choose my look? And there are other examples, from my point of view, very interesting. For example, information on diet or medical information. We have an example chatbot addressed to vulnerable people. For example, if they need help, if they need to be in contact with someone, or just and help to decide which kind of medicine they need to take. So these are examples of how ICT technologies, and in this case chatbot, can be a very useful instrument to be used in everyday life. So in some way they also have a social value. They are not simple an application for an engineer, but it is something that can help people in everyday life. Some data about this project. We started, as I mentioned, in 2017-18 with around 70 participants. But I think that the great difference was in 2019-20. We moved from around 80 to 130 participants, meaning that we did a good promotion, first of all, and and our merit, but also that the project is really appreciated among the students. It is becoming very popular, and more female students wish to participate every year. As you may see in the current edition, 2020-21, we have this great amount of participants, and this is related to the fact that the whole program is delivered online. So no webinars, no laboratories face-to-face here in Padua, but only online. And this, of course, is one of the positive results of this difficult situation. Online, we have the opportunity to welcome much more students and to include all the requests we had from the high school and from the teachers. Some feedback. What do the girls think about this experience, how they feel? Well, I think what is important, apart from the final choice in terms of degree curriculum, is the fact that all of them demonstrated how some soft and transversal skills were developed thanks to this experience. And we know that soft and transversal skills are nowadays essential because we are related to adaptability and to the opportunity and the possibility to build our future, our work project. So, for example, this first command comes from the last year experience. The experience was face-to-face in Padua, but the conclusion and the final training was online because the emergency was already on and so going on, and so no other possibilities. These students said, I understood the importance of technology and how necessary is the efficiency of our device, for which aim to remain in touch with our families and our friends. So technology as means to also support, to be a really help for everyday life and to keep relationship with people. Another command, very positive command from a teacher, a high school teacher, that focused on the fact that this working group, so the ability to work together from the girls, has been very great help to harmonize the general atmosphere of the class. So it was a good occasion to practice and to do something that normally does not happen within the classes. And of course, really nice, a great opportunity to prove ourselves. So a challenge. I am a woman. I'm not so used to think about this kind of subject, but this is a challenge. I can do that. I can afford it. I can be successful. Which are our challenges? We are at the 4th edition, and although we are quite sure and happy about the positive feedback from the girls, demonstrated also by the increasing number of participants, we need, first of all, to really measure the effectiveness of the project in terms of numbers of students who finally decide to undertake university degree in these fields. This is not very easy because, of course, universities in Italy are a lot. So, of course, it is not automatic that students coming from Padua wish to apply to University of Padua. But we think it would be very important to try to monitor their studies and working career in order to see if first they decide to undertake this kind of programs, if they are successful, if their career will remain in this field. Another important challenge comes from more deep reflection. As far as we have this low number of female students participating in studying these disciplines, on the other side, we also need to overcome, to go beyond another stereotype, which is linked to known scientific disciplines, for example, humanities, philosophies, education, which is nowadays still attended by females, but not by males. So the reflection is that we should be able to say that there are no studies for male or females, but simply that knowledge has no gender differences. So knowledge is for everybody, female and males, and we should say that there is no distinction. We have another big problem, one in the STEM, the other one in the other disciplines. For women, we do not have any, or we do have a few teachers in primary and secondary school, male teacher. We only have women. And these stereotypes comes from the very beginning of education, from the first level of education, primary and secondary school, starting from books, starting from families and social contexts. Of course, if the idea from the families to their daughters is, oh, you can be a nurse, you can be a teacher, you can be a waitress, but you can't be an engineer. And we reinforce this approach with books in the school where you have all the images showing an engineering as a man and a nurse as a woman. Of course, it will be more and more difficult to go beyond this kind of stereotypes. So our challenge is to work not only with women, but also with men to arrive at this great objective, which is no differences, no gender differences within knowledge and education. And I think this is all. I hope to be on time.
Thank you, Sylvia. You were perfect. Thank you very much. We received some questions in the chat, and I saw Stefan already answered them. The first question was from Nuria, who was asking Sylvia and Stefan how do we get funds in order to promote their actions. And Stefan answered that the action get funds from the state, Ministry of Education, and private companies as Alstom or SNCF or Kairos, and from also from our foundation called Femmes at Numérique, thanks to the fundraising campaign of his foundation, Blaise Pascal. And Sylvia, could you add something about this? How do you get funds to finance this?
Well, what you may find quite strange, but the fact is that we have no funds at all. So this project is absolutely free of charge for the students, but it's also free of charge from EBM. So I think just a matter of it is useful for EBM having 15 universities in Italy involved in the project. You know, they started around 7-8 years ago in Rome with one of the most famous and bigger university in Italy, La Sapienza, and then they will be able to spread, to develop the success of this project. And nowadays we are 15 universities, so they take advantage from this simply. As for the students, of course, it's completely free as a university. Well, right now in this online version of the project, no fees at all. But when last year's it was in the university, we simply use the university buildings, university rooms. So it's just our job, our time, and no fees at all. I should add that we have in Italy a legislation related to a certain amount of hours that secondary students have to complete with some working or training experience. It is compulsory for them. So all the occasional opportunities like this one are very well welcomed by the school, because they really need to fulfill this amount of hours. In this case, the nice thing is, of course, the content, the focus, and the great opportunity for students, which are students coming from very different kind of schools. So from, for example, humanities schools, but also from technicals one. So we do not have any particular requirement apart the desire to be very creative, innovative, and just wishing to prove themselves.
Thank you, Sylvia. And Nuria has a second question. What is the step they feel, what is the step you feel more difficult to carry out in your project?
Are you speaking with me?
Yeah, sure.
What I found difficult. Oh, no, sorry. I was reading the chat, so I missed your question. So what was difficult? Well, as any new project at the very beginning was difficult to promote it and to get the availability of the school to involve the students. But the other thing is to be able also to convince the families. For example, you said before in the previous presentation, a very interesting thing, which is related to this process of changing the point of view, which is the booklet for parents. Stefan, so you produce a booklet for parents. I think this is very important because the changing in the mind, in the approach beyond the stereotypes comes from the family and the society. At the same time, sometimes we have this kind of problem with the students. The school propose this option, but as there is a great part, a working group, which is individual for the students in their small group, apart from EBM tutors, of course, they need to be supported by their family that are requested to understand the value of this opportunity. When, of course, they are in the final phase and consider the best project and they have the opportunity to have this training with the EBM, at that point, families are very happy, of course, because it represents a very good occasion and an opportunity also for the future.
Okay, thank you. We had a question from Benedetta for Stefan, but I think Stefan also answered in the chat. It was about how to measure the impact of our best practice on the number of young women enrolling in STEM at Lyon's University. And Stefan, if you want to answer, or I'm just trying to find your answer back.
Well, I was just saying that it's very difficult, the impact measurement. We will, I can add to what I wrote in the chat, that we will also start impact measurement process with a company called Impact Track in March, within the Blaise Pascal Foundation, and try to measure impact of our actions. But it's very complicated. So we also had the idea to give forms to the people in the first year of the university, and asking them if they have been following such activities, such actions, and if they made a change in their orientation. But until now, we didn't do so. And then, well, I think it's not so easy, where you have to have quantity and to measure forms, etc., but also to have long study like done by social people, etc. And I think it should be a mix between several tools.
Thank you. Thank you.
Then I think we can go with Nuria's presentation. Nuria, are you ready?
Yeah, let me 1 second, please. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, we can, Nuria.
Okay, thank you. Good morning to everyone. Thank you very much for your participation today. My name is Nuria Rico, and it is a pleasure for me to be here today. I'm going to talk about the project I Want to Be an Engineer. Translating from Spanish, I want to be a female engineer. This project was carried out 2 years ago in 6 Spanish universities, and the goal of this project was to make STEM areas more friendly for high school students, especially for girls. In my presentation, I will focus on 3 parts. The first one is about how the current situation is, I think all speakers after me remark this question too, and I will show some data to understand how things are today and why we still need this kind of project. The second part shows some factors that explain the situation. I think all of us have mentioned this in some way, so I will give my point of view. And last part is about what can we do, and here I will explain some features of the project. This first part then is about how the situation is. Let me begin with this picture called the scissor diagram. This is a picture from UNESCO, but it is similar to many pictures you can see if you represent data from almost any country about the percentage of male and female students, the master, then PhD, researchers. And for other categories, it can be accommodated to the own scientific system in any country. The scissors diagram says that a little bit more women than men are studying sciences, but many more men than women are in researcher jobs. And if we continue the graph, the more relevant or prestigious is the job, the bigger is the gap. This leads us to the notion of glass ceiling, what represents an invisible barrier that keeps a given minority from rising beyond a certain level in a hierarchy. And we can measure this glass ceiling using this quotient. In the numerator appears the percentage of women in all categories, and in the denominator we have the percentage of women in the highest category. If there is equality, this index is equal to 1. The bigger index, the harder the glass ceiling is. In this picture, we can see this index for the Spanish National Research Council, and this is 2.14. This is the glass ceiling index for physics. An interpretation for this is an index equal to 2.14 means that a woman needs 2.14 times more merits than a man to reach the same high category job. If we look at the information and communication technologies, ICT area, here we can see a picture that represents the rate of women in research and development at ICT sectors in Spain. As you can see, women are underrepresented in this sector, in all sectors. And this is the same along almost every country. ICT is a male-dominated sector of the labor market. European Union gives us this data from 2011 to 2015. The small percentage of women working in digital sector turns on even smaller. Around 12% of people with ICT-related studies and working on the digital sector are women. We have seen women are well represented in number of students and number of women in low category of science, but in ICT we are underrepresented since school. Let's have a look at this data about what are the preferences for students that choose their degrees. Here we have data for Spanish students. The year 2019, the percentage of women students at the university is 55.22%, but it depends on the area. For example, in sciences, women are a little bit more than 50% of students, but we can see in engineering and architecture, women are less than 25% of students. If we ask about what are the preferences of women and men in their studies, in Spain we have this data. In short, men choose cars, sports, electronics and computing much more than women, and women choose studies related to caring and kids much more than men. Well, this is the current situation in Spain, and it is similar in almost every country in the European Union. We are talking about the gender gap in STEM fields. We really know the bigger gap is regarding engineering and especially in computing. And the question is why? Because if we think in a project to reduce the gender gap, we must know what is happening and why this gap exists. There exists a lot of research about the reasons, and this second part of my speech I will try to point out some factors that researchers underline. The first one I choose is called John-Jennifer effect. It is about unconscious bias we have assessing the merits of men and women. These researchers do the next experiment. They send several curriculum vitae applying for a laboratory job. The merits are the same in all forms, but one half has a male name, John, and the other half has a female name, Jennifer, but nothing else is different. Then they study the evaluation that John and Jennifer have in different universities, and surprisingly, Jennifer is worse evaluated than her partner John. Male evaluators do a biased evaluation, but the really shocking result is female evaluators do it too. And when the researchers show the results to evaluators, both male and female, they refuse to believe it. Other similar experiments show that STEM teachers tend to undervalue girls' exercises and exams. And when exam scores are similar, it is usual to say girls, good, you worked hard, and say boys, good, you got talent. And this leads us to the next factor. People refuse to believe there exists a bias. In this study, researchers find a relative reluctance among men, especially faculty men within STEM, to accept evidence of gender bias in STEM. This finding is very problematic because if we want to transform and improve the situation, first step is to acknowledge that bias exists. The next factor is the overrepresentation of men in textbooks at school and the lack of the role models for girls. I show this data table where you can see in how many pages and how many people appears in high school textbooks for one Spanish region. Only 3 women on 2 pages appear in technology textbooks, 28 men and in 25 pages. More than 300 men in more than 200 pages. 3 women in 2 pages in computing textbooks. The next factor is about anxiety towards mathematics, and you can see in all fields girls show bigger anxiety than boys in social science, technical or experimental science or health science, in everyone. Factor number 5 is representing a lot of factors related to stereotypes and to the impostor syndrome. One stereotype is women must provide caring for others, especially parents when they are old, children when they are babies, and husband in every single moment. So the second stereotype is STEM is only for very talented people. And we have seen girls are less valued than boys, and girls listen, they have talent less times than boys. Girls have more anxiety on mathematics, and society weights women care others, and there no exist role models for girls in technology and computing. So the very strange thing is some of them finally study a STEM degree. But the good news is they do. Once we are in STEM field, it is common to find the impostor syndrome. This is the name when a woman doubts her accomplishment and has a persistent fear of being exposed as a fraud. These are maybe the stereotype with more weight, and it is a serious matter because children believe in them since they are 6 years old. At this age, children think boys are brilliant more than girls, and this negatively influences women's interest and careers, especially in mathematics and physics. So, what can we do? This is a question with a not simple answer. In my university, we have developed a lot of programs. I'm going to talk about one of them. The program is called I Want to Be an Engineer. I want to be a female engineer. This program is the same in 6 public universities of Spain, 1 year long, and with a cost of 70,000 euros for each university. Spanish government started it and give the funds to carry out the activities. Now I am going to talk now briefly about this project, which has 3 phases. The first one has 2 stages as well. The first consists of organizing meetings with teachers, parents, and other educational agents to expose them there exists one problem and we all are part of it. The final goal is to look for some solutions altogether and draw some strategies trying to remove gender gap, gender bias, and gender stereotypes from school. Unfortunately, educational agents have no time and in many cases have no interest to spend time with these questions. They used to answer the problem doesn't exist in their schools, or they are actually working on it and no more meetings are necessary. Nevertheless, some schools open their doors and then teachers and parents always say they were wrong, thinking there are no problems about gender inequalities. This first phase is the most complicated, but I must say it is the most necessary because children and teenagers are greatly influenced by their closest environment. At the same time, we offer teenagers, both girls and boys, to participate in an engineering fair. That is a 3-day fair with conferences and many workshops and activities related to engineering, mathematics, and physics. The goal is to show fun and interesting activities to encourage them to consider engineering good, fun, and exciting. And the most important thing, consider engineering as a profession for both men and women. To do the last, all speakers are women, and workshops are carefully prepared to encourage girls' participation. Second phase is only for girls. They spend 1 day working like an engineer at the university with a teacher or a researcher supervising the work. Here the main problem is boys are not invited. Many schools don't understand we have no resources to take in both girls and boys. And our goal is for girls to know engineering because girls don't choose engineering for their futures. So boys don't need this activity. They have a big social advantage and we try to reach them. In the last phase, we have 7 different boot camps where girls develop a little engineering project. They work very freely. They choose their projects and develop them with the help of their female instructors. The girls enjoy this activity more than the others. They say they feel comfortable without boys. They say because if boys are in the classroom, boys do all the handwork. Some conclusions about this program, I Want to Be a Female Engineer, are first, it is very, very difficult to work with adults, teachers, parents, and so on, because they have no time and have no much interest. Second, activities only for girls need to be carefully explained once and again and again. The more activities only for girls you do, the more times you have to explain it. Some people will never understand, but it doesn't matter. The very important thing is girls love these activities, and they have an effect on girls. The bad news is significant effect is expected for a medium or long term, and this project for a similar one should be performed for several years in a row. It is not enough to make a great investment once in a lifetime. We must sustain the investment until necessary, and nobody knows how long is it. Okay, this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. And if you have any question, I will be very happy trying to answer you.
Thank you very much, Nuria. We had two questions. The first one is from Sandra, who asked if we increase the involvement of schoolgirls in such activities, does it increase the number of female students and scientists in the STEM disciplines?
Well, I think everything helps. Maybe the effect, it is not expected to be in a short time. We are not expecting a very big boom of girls in STEM areas, but every single help they have is very important for them. I think it's my opinion.
Sylvia or Stefan, do you have something to complete this question?
Yes, I may ask a question. So I ask a general question in the chat, but it's not on the talk of Nuria. But on the talk of Nuria, I wanted to know if you follow the girls. You present several actions, and then so they go for a day as an intern, and then they have a boot camp, etc. Do you follow the same girls?
No.
Ah, okay.
No. In each phase, the girls are different.
Can I just
say, yeah,
I found everything very interesting. Thank you. One of the last things you said was, or wrote down, was that for a real change, activities must be repeated a long time. And I think this is fundamental because even in the most recent literature about vocational guidance, it is recommended that vocational guidance and the project on one's professional and life pathway has to be preventive, has to be done at the early stages of our life circle, so to speak, but has to be also recursive. It is not enough if we start early, if we intend it as a preventive activity. We have to do it on a rotational basis again and again, and then it will work. So I think that's a very important point about this project. And the other point is that the investment is, I think, quite wide, and that demonstrates the willingness of from the government side to actually invest on such policies and actions, and that's admirable.
Yeah, thank you very much. But I must say the funds is stopped. Government stopped the program, so universities carry out a little bit of these 3 phases actually, but not every phase. No, we have no resources to do this.
I spoke too early. I was enthusiastic about that point, but
I hope someday we can do it again.
Yeah.
But nowadays it is impossible, and it's very difficult with COVID and this situation we have. It is very, very difficult for today.
So, since we are saying how can Arqus universities contribute to the whole topic, I think that Arqus University should actually promote this kind of activities strongly to the decision makers and politicians up there. And I think the Alliance is here also to do that.
I hope to.
Well, I absolutely agree with Benedetta that this is supposed to be a real process starting from early stages of education. You mentioned the numbers of male and women and men in the books. So it is a process that needs to involve really a different kind of actors, society, but teachers, families, and maybe students are really the last. They are just receiving all these kind of inputs from school, families, society. And if these inputs are not the right one from our point of view, the results, of course, are all along their life, and they influence their choices and their path they decide to undertake. So it is very important to start from the very, very beginning, but in this sense, decision makers are essential. I think we can start among our universities, but we need to find a solution to arrive somewhere over us. I mean, because otherwise it is very easy discussion, but we have well, a great challenge to face.
Yeah, girls, of course, can choose their studies and nobody prevent them. But the question is maybe they not have all the information because all their lives, society expect they be beautiful and play with baby toys. And they don't see women doing science or engineering or TV or internet. Girls see all the time women being happy because they have pretty families and they look elegant. However, boys see strong and smart men. The question is not their freedom. I think the question is about their perception of the world and the role they play in it. I wonder if what they think society is expecting for them, and I think these kind of activities open their minds, maybe just a little bit, but it is a step.
And we had the last question maybe before the break, coming from Lucia. Once girls participate in these projects about STEM, and some of them choose a study program in STEM, what context do they find when they finish their studies and go out looking for a job? If any of you has comments about this?
Marion, sorry, but I didn't hear you. Can you repeat, please?
Sorry. Yes, and I'm gonna write it back in the chat. So once girls participate in this project about STEM, and that some of them choose a study program in STEM, what context do they find when they finish their studies and that they go out looking for a job?
Okay, thank you. I think I show a picture about sailing glass. So the future is not very, very clear. It's not funny to see this, but we need more girls in these areas to break this sailing glass. They have if there's only one girl, it's very difficult to break nothing. But if we are a lot of girls in the area, we can create a lot of things. It's my opinion.
Stefan or Sylvia or any other speakers?
So the companies I've met looking for money for such activities, they are very aware of the problem. And in France, in general, there are not enough people with master in computer science, for example. Not only women, but all in general. We have not enough people in this branch. But they are aware that there is a problem with women. The glass ceiling is still there also in this company, but I think they try. I mean, that's what I understood and what I can say from the companies I met. They try to do something also for the girl to feel good within the company with all other people, etc., and for their careers. But yeah, there is a lot to do.
Yeah, well, I think that the problem is still very concrete and real. I mean, we can say that women are successful and they don't face any difficulties because this is not the truth. But the important thing is that there's a great debate within the universities on that. So this is a starting point and it is important. I think also that we have this, for myself as guidance unit, for example, within the university, so would be the same in the other university, we have this great responsibility to share with students all the information, because you can make a choice if you have all the opportunities in front of you, and you need to know that there are opportunities. If you don't know that there are opportunities in such fields, you will never consider the possibility to do that. And this depends on people you meet, people you live with, teachers you have in your school lives and whatever. So it is a long process, but as usual, we need to start from somewhere. So let's try to do that. And we hope to be successful. I don't know when, but maybe our daughters within 20 years will have more opportunities than us. But this difference between women is also very concrete in our universities, in all the academic positions, for example. So all the leaders are, in the most of the cases, are men, although we are brilliant researchers and teachers and professors, but leading roles are always covered by men.
Benedetta,
I think universities and Arqus universities will have a responsibility also in training the trainers, in training the teachers, in training the lecturers, not only at the high school level, but also within the university curricula. If we think as UNICEF and UNESCO are recommending about a gender responsive STEM education, those who are in such a field of study should have in their curriculum also something related to this topic, or at least when they do the postgrad studies. In Italy it is like that. I don't know, in your countries it might be very different, but in Italy we have the postgrad courses for teaching, specializations for teaching. In that is a very fundamental occasion to train our future teachers to be able to have a gender-driven or a gender-responsive STEM education from schools onwards. And I think as a model in Women to STEM 2.3, Action Line 2, we should also think about this.
Thank you very much for this last point. I think we can now make a short break, if you agree to, and we can come back at 10:45 in 10 minutes.
Well, so hello everyone from Graz. I'm glad to be part of this webinar on this very great day, February 11th. And today I'm going to present you a little bit about how we deal with intersectional discrimination at Graz University. And I would like to start by telling you about the long tradition of women's promotion and gender equality measures. So this long focus on supporting women, female students, female academic staff. This contains university orientation, so offers to students and staff on what does it mean to be at the university. This means a career promotion, networking support, and also gender competence training. And after showing you or telling you a little bit about this, I will add this, talk about these recent additions in regard to diversity management, the anti-bias circle, and the diversity trainings that we're offering now. So talking about women's promotion and gender equality measures, I would like to tell you a little bit about these four main areas where there are trainings, measures, and offers. So the first one is university orientation for female students and graduates. So they get to introduce to what it means to be a lecturer, so the occupation as a lecturer, or they get introduced to university structures. Then a second area is on career promotion for female scientists, female scholars, academics. There, for example, we offer a one-year career program for female academics. So they have around 10 workshops throughout the whole year together in a group, but they get also some personal coaching. Then we have training on strategic career planning. We have a mentoring program or mentoring programs, application and appointment training, and something very special for STEM doctoral candidates is the summer school that was supposed to be happening in 2020, but was postponed because it was felt by the organizers and trainers that this is nothing that could be done online. It should be done in presence. At the University of Graz, there's also some networking for female professors, so networking support, and we have gender competence trainings for all staff. For example, training for committees on how to best avoid biases, or didactics, so gender diversity aspects in didactics and teaching. And what are the main points in regard to these measures? So the majority of these measures and offers are directed at female students and academics. Only the last one, these trainings are open to everyone, so also people who identify as males. And they are open to all students and staff, so it doesn't matter what they study, where they come from. And among these targets groups are STEM students and academics, but it's they're free to participate. There is no obligatory thing. And this summer school, as I already mentioned, is a specific STEM measure. And I also would like to point out to you that a central cornerstone, because it exists already since 2001, so for 20 years, is a cooperation among the four universities in Graz. So we have the University of Graz, we have a technical, a medical, and a University of Music and Performing Arts. And they all work together in these cooperation potentials. So many of these offers that I presented to you are actually open to all these four universities. Everyone can participate. Okay, so now you get a little bit of an idea that there is a broad range of measures and offers, especially for women, to learn about, you know, all these things that you already talked in the previous presentations and in your discussion, you know, getting a sense of what it means to study at university, to work at the university, to work in academia. And very recently, we have added the field of diversity management to these measures, and this comes under the label of the anti-bias university and the so-called anti-bias circle. Now I would like to tell you a little bit more about this, how it's developed, what the goals are, and what the challenges are. So it's, for us, it's a form of diversity management. So this anti-bias university, but the label anti-bias university was chosen on purpose, and on purpose we did not use diversity as a headliner. It is parallel to women's promotion and gender equality measures, so it is very important for us to let these measures not compete with each other and not get into rivalry. So it's an add-on. It's something that we also look at, but we're not forgetting about females. And it all started in 2015-16 with the application for a prize that was awarded, or is awarded actually. It's continuously awarded by the ministry, and the University of Graz won this prize. It's the Diversitas Prize, Diversity Prize. The underlying strategy of our measures in this regard is intersectional mainstreaming. So maybe some of you are not familiar with the term bias. For us, it's important, so we focus on this term. What does it mean to have a bias? It means that we associate attitudes or stereotypes with a particular group. So when we meet someone, maybe this person applies for a job and we have a job interview, and then we categorize this person. We say it's a woman, it's a young woman, she comes from this and that socioeconomic background. So we put this person into certain categories and groups, and then we associate certain attitudes or stereotypes with these groups. So we think, oh, she's a female, she will probably not be able to lead this department or institute, etc., etc. So if we have a bias, then we have a preference or an aversion towards a person or a category of persons, as to being opposed to being neutral. And mostly these biases are implicit, so it needs a lot of training to become aware of them, and then also to change them and not act on them. What is also important when we talk about the example from my university is the terms diversity and intersectionality. So diversity basically is just a description of the heterogeneity. It describes that we are a group of students and staff at the university who come from different backgrounds, who have different gender identities, sexual identities, who range in age, etc. Yeah, so it's just a description. And intersectionality then is a term that was a concept by Kimberly Crenshaw that focuses on aspects of discriminations, forms of discrimination, and actually how it is not one form but it's mostly an combination, an overlap, an intersection of being female, being young, being Black, for example, in a certain area at university. And this group experiences different forms of discrimination, of marginalization than other groups. Male, a white male in a certain age, around 50, will at the university probably face no discrimination, but have a good working surrounding. Okay, so what is this anti-bias circle, and how did it start? It started out with a scanning of what is already there at the University of Graz, and a lot has already been there in 2015 when this paper has been drawn up. So there are measures regarding first generation students. There is refugee support. There are offers on teaching, diversity, gender. There is Unikid, Unicare. So this is support for parents and support for other people who have caring responsibilities. So there's a lot. We have a Center for Integrative Studies. Yeah, so there are all these little offices that have their special target group that try to support this target group. This is already there. And from these from all these services and offices, departments, we can collect a lot of information. We can collect needs, problems, challenges, solutions, and this happens in the anti-bias circle. So it's a group of people that are actually representing all these individual services and offices. And then the work of the anti-bias circle is to have a broader picture. So to look at the organizational culture, to look at structures, at processes, so away from the single target groups and more towards the whole organization. So developing the whole organization. And also by a regular exchange, also including the needs and problems of specific groups to the entire group of students. So going away from the small target groups. So the anti-bias circle is a group of representatives of these central departments and services, the student union, the administrative and academic employee representatives, and also some scientists, some academics, especially sociologists, for example, whose research is also located in this area. So this anti-bias circle meets twice a year. And there are also open meetings where everyone is invited to join. And so far, this circle has developed a lot of material, so on inclusive teaching and working, on fair personal recruitment, on media representation, on language, videos. There was an awareness campaign. We have a mission statement. We have a logo, which you see on the slides. It's diversity, because in German, it fits perfectly together, the diversity and university, as in English. We work on the topic of all gender toilets, etc. And you can check it all out on the website Diversität Point Uni. You see it there on the slide, and it's also in English. You can find everything. So the goals are to remove barriers for disadvantaged groups, to dismantle discriminatory, exclusionary, and power-maintaining mechanisms in research, teaching, and administration, to create an ideal environment for everyone, for all the people who work at the university, who study there, who do research there. Part of this is also to reflect on their own privileges, on the norms. You've already, I know in the previous presentation, you've talked about the norms. Also the norm of the student, the academic, the employee. For us, it's important to show solidarity, because within this circle, most of us are very privileged people. So we need to show solidarity with others. And goal is also to value and promote the diversity of experiences, skills, and potentials. And now I would like to very shortly present you four principles for this work, for this anti-bias university work. And I would also point out some challenges and some resistances. So what we're trying to do is we try to broadly involve all the diversity relevant actors through this anti-bias circle. But as you can imagine, we come up with ideas, with things we want to change, processes we want to change. And then very often we have to approach other people, other offices. And for them, this might not be the top priority. Also, it's mostly the heads of these offices that are in the circle, but sometimes they also send out colleagues who might be more interested in the topic. So we have this delegation effect, that the chores or to be part of this anti-bias circle is passed down from the head of an office to staff. And this then comes with the question of responsibility. How responsible do the members of the circle feel? And it's a long-term process to get to change things. The next principle and foundation is a close connection to organizational values. So we have a lot of things at the university. We have a development plan. We have a code of ethics. And many staff and students follow this meritocratic ideal and a strong performance orientation. So we try to check where we can work with this, where we can add on some diversity and intersectional perspectives to this. But some of these measures are not seen as being aligned with the meritocratic ideal. So get budget cuts in that regard, because women are part of diversity, so we don't need these specific measures anymore. So this could be a problem. And we try to get to all students and staff, and on a low level. But as you can imagine, that's a lot of work, a lot of constant work, and this puts away the focus on the structure, on the organization. So this is okay. So in this short presentation, I tried to show you these two lines of action that we have at the University of Graz, and how we added the diversity management or this intersectional approach. And and on this last slide, I just added some insights from our work. And what I want to point out is that in the yellow one in the bottom left corner, exchanging with other higher education institutions, learning from others. I think this is also why it makes sense to be in this Arqus webinar, I think, with this presentation, and also why this is an argument for Arqus itself, I think, because it's very helpful always to exchange with others and see what they are doing, why they are doing it, you know, why they make certain decisions, how these decisions are related to their universal structures, their hierarchies. And that's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Lisa. I can see one question from Stefan, which is, did you discuss quotas?
Did we discuss?
Maybe Stefan can develop his question.
Yes, also. Please.
Yes, this is something I asked before. So has any of university present here in the Arqus discussed quotas in certain bachelor, like computer science? Do you think we should, or university should use quotas to have more women? So I've heard of some university in the US have been doing so for computer science, for example. I think it's Carnegie or something. What do you think, and what did you discuss this in the anti-bias circle?
As you can imagine, we have quotas for women in certain positions, so regarding staff, academic staff, but not in regard to students. And I'm not aware of any serious discussion of student quotas. Yeah, but as you can imagine, as in any other university, we have very different numbers of females and males in all the different study fields. So yeah.
Thank you. I can't see any other question. Gustavo, did you receive any of them? Benedetta. How wide, in a good sense, pervasive? Is my pronunciation okay? Pervasive, yes. So how wide is the impact of the anti-bias circle within the university community?
Thank you for that question, Benedetta. I was actually, this was one thing I should have said. It's a good question, and it's one that I cannot really answer you. I think not as the outreach is not as far as we wish for. But especially with the let's put it this way. But especially with we have three new trainings that come with this label, and one is interdisciplinary work. And so working together in interdisciplinary teams. One is privilege awareness, and the third one is how to deal with discrimination also when you're bystanding, so when you're witnessing discrimination. And what we notice is that these three workshops are always full, so there are always 15 to 20 people participating. They're offered once a year. So and now in as an online version, there were even more people, more participants. So the broad label and all these little activities that we can put under it, I think this is helpful, because especially when it comes to certain measures targeted only at females, this is, yeah, some females do not feel comfortable with receiving this support. They don't even see it as support. So I think this is quite useful for the trainings. But apart from that, yeah, we know that people use the videos. I use the videos in various trainings. People use the videos in teaching, for example. And I think it's a slow process. I think, yeah, we start with 5 people who become aware of it, and then these 5 people maybe each tell one, just like with Corona. So it's a slow spreading, but I think it's a spreading, but we have to have a long breath in it, and we always have to come up with new ideas to make it visible, to use the university media and to communicate what we do and stuff. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think this is quite a common experience. I can talk for Padua because we have a similar feeling. We are not actually very good still at measuring the impact, and I think Arqus should insist on this, and we should find ways to measure the impact of any kind of actions we are developing together, and even starting from these very, 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 very good practices which are still there, ready for us. Yeah, for example, we have a survey. I'm the head of the inclusion sector here, and we have, of course, a compulsory survey every single year to measure the student satisfaction about our services, and not only about our services, but about, in general, the university policy about inclusion and mission, vision, and so on. But for example, few people take part in this survey. We send it to the 982 students enrolled who have disclosed their disability and or learning disorders and or other kind of conditions, similar conditions. And this year, for the first time, I don't know why, but 130 replied, which is nothing. But in the previous years, we even had fewer people, smaller numbers, and that's a problem. So I think we should actually think about how to be more efficient in measuring the impact of what we do, because I think we do many very interesting, innovative, and fundamental things, but if we cannot know whether they are having an impact and how maybe we should correct them in a way, change them a little bit, we need the response.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. But I think it's not so easy to measure the effects. I think that is it's a challenge. I also work in another office where my area is also teaching evaluation, and it's the same. You have you participate in a course, and then it could be that years later you realize that what you learned in this course, you got stuck and you can use it. So we have to, I think my colleague, for example, who organizes all the trainings and workshops, she's always in exchange with the trainers and with the participants. So on this personal level, on an exchange, I think this is where we get feedback, and of course we also collect feedback. But for the trainings, it's the easiest. But all the other measures and all this material, yeah.
Yeah, and also there are so many variables in place. Yeah, it's difficult even to identify eventually the variables to include in the survey, to be sure that you are actually measuring what you want to. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. So I think we can go with our next presentation with Philip. Can you share your screen?
Yes.
Okay, we can see it. Thank you.
Okay, very nice. Yeah, thank you for the invitation. And hopefully I will give you interesting insight in my data. I think it's maybe interesting because we talked very much about stereotypes, role models, and I'd like to give you some data and some insights in my research about these stereotypes and the view of chemistry person or physics persons. So this is part of a much bigger study, and this is a study going on for many, many years. And since I'm quite new in Graz, so I'm professor in the area of chemistry education. This data is not from Austria, but from Germany. You can see why I'm presenting it, because it's was surveyed over many years with different groups, and yeah, so please keep in mind that it's data from Germany. What I'd like to talk about, first I'd like to give you some short introduction in the influences on career orientation in general and chemistry related career orientation in special. Then I will switch to the stereotypes and especially the stereotypes in science. And in another part, I will focus on gifted students I was able to survey and their view on chemists and their self-description. And last, I will give some ideas how to cope with these results and how others or me like to cope with these results. So this was the general structure of survey. I was interested in what are influences on a chemistry career orientation. So what makes students like to become a chemist or a scientist in general, but I focused on chemistry. And I thought of some concepts. As you can see, I haven't surveyed the interest things, because it's so well surveyed, and it's common sense that it's very important that you are that there's some interest in this career you want to choose. So I didn't survey it, so I focused on others. I focused on image and on academic self-concept. So I focused on how they see the subject and how they see chemistry as science, how they describe persons working in the field of chemistry, and on the other hand, the academic self-concept, so how they describe their chemical skills, their mathematical skills, language skills, technical skills, and so on. I surveyed many other things, but these are the important things for this talk. The survey started in 2015. There I surveyed 1,113 students in Germany of different grades. So I surveyed grade 8, 10, and 11. Grade 8 is the start of chemistry lessons in Germany, and grade 11 is the beginning of the last 2 years in gymnasium, and grade 10 is the end of the middle school in Germany. So I'd like to have an insight in what is, what are the difference between these grades and what is happening there. And I did some longitudinal studies. So I surveyed the grade 8 students again after 3 years. So then they were in the 11th grade. And I'd like to know if there's something, if there are changes between their time going to school, if there are changes during their chemistry education, and so on. First, I'd like to show you the factors influencing a career orientation. I did a multiple linear regression, and this is the factors influencing a career orientation for grade 8 students. And as you can see, it's the image of chemistry lessons, it's the last school grade, the chemical skills, and the image of chemistry as science. This was the thing I expected. So this was nothing surprising for me. I think this were the influences. So I was not so much surprised. But then I did the multiple linear regression for grade 11, and there were different findings that surprised me. So the image of chemistry lesson was very important, okay? And the difference between the self-description of the students and the prototype description of chemistry, and nothing and no other influencing factors of the surveyed constructs. And this was surprising because it's just image. It's there are no skills. There's nothing like okay, I'm good in chemistry. I like to do something with chemistry. It's just okay, I like chemistry lessons, and okay, I can imagine me as a scientist, or I describe myself more as a like I see scientists. And I think this is this was very surprising to me, and then I looked into the data. Before we do so, I'd like to introduce you to the self-to-prototype matching concept. It's quite important in career orientation. So in career orientation, this concept says there's a self-prototype. This is how you see yourself, how you describe yourself. Then there's the person prototype. So in the field of chemistry, how you describe a chemist, how you see them, how you imagine them. This is not the real chemist. This is how you see, how you personally see a chemist and describe he or she, he or him, he or her. So, and the third point is the person and situation prototype. So this is these are situations that you think the person prototype is working in. And normally you like to do this job if your self prototype and the person prototype and the person in situation prototypes, if they are much in common. So if the field in the middle is getting bigger and bigger, you most like to get this job. So this is important for the talk. So now let's switch to stereotypes in science. It's nothing new. So we know there's a problem with our view in society, though this is are two images of the quite famous draw scientist test, quite early starting in the 80s, but repeated in 2002 and 2014. So this is how students draw a scientist. So, and you can see the scientist is male, is wearing a white lab coat, looking a little bit nerdy, and with some special scientist subjects in his hands, as you can see on the right. There were some women in the study of 2014, but as you can see, women, it's in German, but women are more explaining the dangerous things, and that they are not doing the real chemistry in the view of the students. So there's a difference how they see women in science and men in science. When you put this in the rings, then there's the self-description, the prototypes, and the person in prototype situations. So typical the lab doing dangerous experiments, doing explosions, and so on. This is quite typical for the career choice during adolescence. So if you ask very young children what they like to become, their career choice start with fantasy choices. So knights, astronauts, princess, prince are typical choices. And these choices are much influenced by their surroundings. So this is when girls want to become princess, and boys normally knights. This is very much influenced by the surroundings in kindergarten, in society, and so on. The next step is the trial choices with increasing relevance to reality. So these are jobs that are real. You can really do. You have they are more real to become. But these are seen as important for the young kids. So this is the firefighter, these are a doctor, the garbage disposal, or the football star. So these are jobs that are seen as important. So the kids want to become like this person because they are honored in society, and so they see that they have important jobs. And the third step is are the realistic career aspirations. So this is during school, and when becoming older, these are the jobs they really do. So this career choice is career orientation is a process which is lasting longer years, and it's not a very short process. So and this is one point we heard this morning about before. It's important to focus on this career orientation more in schools. I think this is a very important part, and this is a part which is not so good at schools at the moment. These prototypes are not the prototypes of scientists are made by society and made by media. So for chemists, it's typical the Breaking Bad, Walter White, the bad guy doing drugs, doing bad stuff, typical nerd. And for physics, it's the Big Bang Theory, especially Sheldon and Leonard, two science guys, very strange, very nerdy, but not as bad as Walter White. And especially Breaking Bad is a quite interesting TV show for career orientation in science, because the nerd image got much better. So nerds before Breaking Bad were before Big Bang Theory was a very negative person. So it was the person with less social contacts. And with Big Bang Theory, you can see that these scientists or these nerds are humans like yourself. They are a little bit strange, but they are not dangerous, and you can talk with them and you can handle them. And this was very important for the image of scientists and for the image of nerds. And one very interesting TV series is the CSI series. This is a television show which influenced the female career orientation, because in this show, females and men work together in lab, and this caused many female students wanting to become work like the CSI persons. And so many girls and female students went to university, and in Great Britain you can measure this effect. So this was is a very important television show. So when we put this together, this is the image of a chemist drawn by society. And now I'd like to show you some of my data, and we will look if it's really like this, or if it's just a thing in the media. So I used some items of Cassels and Hanover. They did this before for physicists, and I was the first person doing this for chemistry. So I asked students to cross if they totally disagree or agree with some words like clever, intelligent, nerdy, sensitive, gentle, soft-hearted, and so on. And first I'd like to show you the data of Cassels. This is how the students describe themselves in her survey. So quite clever, quite intelligent, not so nerdy, gentle, delicate, thinking straight. This is how physicists are described by these students. And you can see a difference. You can see that physicists are more clever, intelligent, and educated, but have a lack in the soft skills. So they are not so gentle, not romantic, not sentimental. So especially in the right part of this graphics, there's a very big gap. Now I'd like to show you the data for chemistry. So this is the description of my students I surveyed, and this is the description of chemistry, so the yellow line. And you can see that it's quite similar. So the image of the stereotype of physicists and chemists is quite similar. So there are differences, but the tendency is quite similar. And now this is the problem we have to face. So there's a gap between the self-description and the prototype description. Until now, we haven't looked at the sex, and I'd like to focus now more on this, and we can see some more interesting details. So when we look at male and female, so this is how males describe themselves, and this is how females describe themselves. And this is, I think, very interesting, and it's nothing new, so we all knew this, but I was shocked to see it with the data. So as you can see, females describe themselves not so clever, intelligent, and educated as the male students. And at the right side, you can see that they describe themselves more sentimental, gentle, and soft-hearted. So there's a gap. And I think the very important gap is on the left side, because this is, this is very important, that they describe themselves as less clever, less intelligent, and there's no reason for that, but they do so. Now let's have a look at the prototypes. So this is how male students see chemists, and this is how female students see chemists. So you can see at the right side, there are not so much differences between the prototypes, but on the left side, and there's the problem. So female students see scientists, see chemists even more clever, more intelligent, and more educated than the male students. And so you can see that the gap between self-description and prototype description with females is much bigger than with males. And this is, I think, one of the problems. And on the right side, you can see that the gap between the self-description of the girls and the description of the scientists is bigger too than with the males. So the prototype is quite similar in most parts, but the gap between these is quite big. So this is, I have to come to the end. I'd like to give you some insight in the survey of some gifted students. So I was able to survey gifted and very science interested students during a summer camp in the years 2080 and 2090. And I was interested in how they see chemists and themselves. So I give you just a short insight. So as you can see, they describe themselves much more clever, more intelligent, more educated. And if you compare this with the prototype, you can see that with the blue lines, the gap is getting smaller. So it seems that with gifted students and interested students, these gap is becoming smaller, which was, I think it's because of the model says so, but the data shows that the model is right in this area. And now I'd like to give you an insight in the females of this academy. And there you can see, if you describe them with with the other students, then you can see that the female students of this academy, that the gap between self-description and prototype description is getting smaller. And this was a very interesting point. And you can see that it's getting smaller on the left because their self-description is much better. So it's not the same as the boys, but it's getting closer. And this was very important for me. And on the other side, you can see that the image of these prototype, the image of a chemist seems to be a little bit more realistic, and the gap between their self-description and the prototype description is getting smaller. So how to cope with these results. And I think this is very important. I'd like to show you two projects. This is not my own project. This is a project of a good friend of mine. In Germany, they are focusing on support of career orientation on female students, and especially female students with a migration. And another interesting thing they are doing is science comics. So they are producing comics in the chemistry education students. So future teachers produce these comics with girls and boys, or male and female, working together in lab and without typical stereotypes. And I'd like to show you my own project I like to do. This was canceled because of COVID-19. I think it's important that students meet scientists or chemists in general, not just from university, not just from the research area, but from all the chemistry fields, and talk to them and get to know them, because it's very important to see the chemist as normal person, to get to know them, because the stereotypes are not because they know chemists who are like that, because the stereotypes are because they see these guys normally in the media, and yeah, so this is not a realistic picture. Thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you, Philip. So we have two questions. The first one from Stefan. Speaking about representation, what do you think about the Netflix series The Queen Gambits? Because in France, chess game is more popular than ever, and this is true, definitely. In particular among girls, thanks to this series. What do you think about this representation?
I haven't seen it yet, so I was told that I have to, but I haven't seen it yet. I think it's very important to have these TV shows and TV series, because it's with Big Bang Theory, there is data that in Great Britain more people like to study physics than before. And even with the gifted kids, I talked to some of them, they are very proud to be nerdy. And they are very proud to be a little bit like Sheldon Cooper. I think it's important that these series show that they are normal people, and that they are successful too. And yeah, so I think they are very important.
And we have a second question from Nuria. Nuria, could you read your question, if you don't mind?
Yeah, thank you. I wonder if you ask the same people, the same students, for the description of a male chemist and a female chemist, because I think if you ask the same person, gap is smaller than if you ask different people. I think people realize they have a bias if the two questions are close, but they cannot avoid it if only asked for male or only for female chemist description. What do you think? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, this is a good question. I don't ask about the sex or the gender of chemists. So I ask, imagine a chemist, how would you describe it? And the formulation was so that you can imagine a woman as a chemist or a male as a chemist. So it was quite open, and I'm not able to. So and I don't ask them what if they imagined a woman or a man. So this is just about the aspects of chemist. So yeah.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philippe, for these presentations and your answers. I think we can go for our last presentation from Silvana.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to share the presentation. Silvia or Benedetta can do this.
Okay, we can see it now.
Okay, it's okay.
Yes.
So when I have to change, I can change here. No. Slide. No. I have to ask. Okay. So let's go. Thank you for your invitation. I'm a physicist. I have been a teacher of artificial intelligence at the Department of Information Engineering. And now I'm Studiosa Senior at the University of Padua, and I belong to the Elena Cornaro Center for Gender Studies. In this talk, we address the problem of how can measure gender equality in academia with the aim of defining a gender equality index. So a very different discourse with respect to the previous one, but it is interesting. We have developed this research in the framework of the FP7 project Gender Time, to which the University of Padua participated as partner. The aim of Gender Time project was to implement a self-tailored action plan to increase the participation and career advancement of women researchers. But we, in our team, and I was the scientific responsible coordinator of this team, focus on the way of how to measure gender equality. Here, the consortium, the coordinator was Yvonne Poura of the SP France, Paris. And this was the consortium, just to see next. And only some word about the challenges of the Gender Time project. The challenge dealt with the diversity of the institution involved in the network. Maybe also, I don't know, are common problem that you can address in the next future, maybe. Also, differences in collecting and comparing data because type of contracts, type of career progression, salaries, and so on are very different from country to country. Also, difficulties in finding a common language, but based on a common dictionary. For instance, the team that I built to develop the Gender Equality Index was a multidisciplinary team. There were experts in statistics, in psychology, in artificial intelligence, in Sciences Po, and so on. It was very difficult to find the same meaning for the same word, for a word, for instance. So many discussion on this, also positive discussion. Another point, how to compare results achieved in a big university like our university with that obtained in a small center of research. With which granularity should we compare institution and action plan and so on. So the main keywords of our project was mutual learning, the attention to share opinion, data and results. But going to the index, the idea was to have an instrument for measuring the degree of implementation of gender policies in academia at different times. So first of all, we studied the state of art of indicators, and in our opinion, we found that the indicator of EIGE was the best one. And is the best one, but is not relative to academia. It is relative to European countries and population. It is a composite indicator that measures the complex concept of gender equality of countries. It is an absolute composite indicator where 1 stands for gender inequality and 100 for full gender equality. The scores are based on the gaps between women and men in 6 domains: work, money, knowledge, time, power, and health. And 2 additional domains have been added: violence against women and intersection inequalities. Next slide. Here is the EIGE Gender Equality Index relative to 2019, but that Benedetta show is relative to 2020 is quite similar. Next slide, please. Okay. The score is now, the last is 67.9. Here is 67.4, but almost the same. What is the problem? After 5 years of gender equality policies with this score, the Europe remains far from reaching its gender equality aim. As they please come back the previous. As EIGE people tell, we are still far from the finish line, because from 2005 until now, there is a difference of 5 points, 6 points, nothing. So, coming to our research, we wanted to develop a gender equality index for academic institutions. So we needed to redefine a specialized model. Also integrating other approaches coming from other European projects like Janis Lab. Next slide. And furthermore, we want to measure the gender equality index with a direction. To know if gender equality is for women or against women. If you have an absolute index, you cannot know this. So to do this for each domain, the first step consists in identifying the direction of the simple indicator. Exactly as Alice in the forest, when asked to the cat, could you please tell me how I should do get out of here? And the cat answered, it depends on where you want to go. So you have to know the direction, just to see if the gender equality index is in favor of women or men. So we implemented a tool specifically tailored for academia, composed of 7 domains: work, money, time, knowledge, space, health, power. Declined for the academia, which means university and research center, and divided, each domain is divided into subdomain. For instance, power is divided into vertical segregation and presence in academic organisms. On the basis of this conceptual model, we collected data. How? Please. Data came from 2 different sources: the service of the university, if the required data were available, and the survey that was built on the basis of this conceptual model. The survey, it is published on the book that I will give the link to the book on this project at the end of this conversation, and you can find the survey in English, also in Italian, since we have utilized the survey in Italian. The questionnaire, the survey, was distributed to full and associate professor, assistant researcher, research fellow, and postdoc fellows at the University of Padua. At that moment, it was 3,041 individuals, and the feedback was good. The respondents were 954, corresponding to the 31% of the target population. Is good. A lot of data. Next slide. There is no time to explain exactly how we proceed with data, but for each domain, we calculated the corresponding values of simple indicator IWD for women, IMD for men, and then we did the ratio between these 2 values. If this ratio is equal to 1, this means that we get a gender equality. If it is less than 1, there is a gender gap against women. If it is more than 1, there is a gender gap in favor of women. So the final step was to calculate the composite indicator relative to each domain. But let's see only just briefly the value of the domain power. The domain power is composed by the subdomain vertical segregation. This was the data from services. And if you can see, in green is the presence of men, in blue of women. But we start here in this graph from right to left. That is, at the right part, you have non-permanent research fellow, and to the left part, full professor. As you can see, it's evident, self-evident, the vertical segregation, even with this color, okay? So, combining this value, we have calculated the indicator of power, which is, its value is 0.0 699, thus measuring a gender gap against women of 30.1% in the domain of power. And this was measured with a very strong scientific method. Okay, this is the value of all the domain. At the end, the composite indicator value was 0.88. But as you can see, the domain power is the domain with the lowest value. And it is very interesting, this aspect. We can use this indicator also to measure some data on some indicator on some domains, not in all the domain we have considered. For instance, we're interested in power, we can measure this index and to compare. Why it is important, this indicator? Since is a tool for comparison among university and research center based on a ranking that measures the gender equality. And at this link, you can find, you can download this report with all the results, many more things that I told in this presentation. And also, as I said before, the survey, the copy of the survey that you can look at. As for the academia, there are some other indicators, but not so much. For instance, there is an indicator that has been developed in Plotina project at the University of Bologna. But it is interesting to compare on this basis. Only 2 words about the STEM and the ICT, since this was a gender indicator for all the field, not specific for STEM. Here for ICT, as you know, there is less women that present in ICT. Across 35 countries, fewer than 1 in 5 computer science graduates are women. Very slow and very low presence. In Italy, the same. In our department, for instance, the percentage of women, of students doing informatics is 9%. It's very low. It seems that, as already Silvia told, that the stereotypical image of the computer science student is that of the nerd. I don't explain more than Silvia told, but girls do not identify in this image, and they choose other studies, even if it is informatics, it is an artificial intelligence, especially, is very developing sector. The question is, it is equal all over the world? No. I have found these results that in the UNESCO publication of last year, 2019, entitled "I'd Blush If I Could," which is very interesting, and I show you. In ASIS, this graph shows on the ASIS the gender equality score of different countries in the world, as supplied by the World Economic Forum. Okay, in ASIS. On the ordinate, the percentage of graduates in ICT tertiary education who are female. in ordinata. As you see, there is a surprising lack of direct relationship between gender equality levels and the proportion of female studying ICT. For the European and other developed countries, appearing on the lower right hand side of the chart in blue, for instance, there is France, Finland, New Zealand, and so on. Higher gender equality is not associated with higher female participation in ICT programs. That is, you see, the percentage is about 20% of female graduated in ICT. For the group appearing on the upper left-hand side of the chart, lower society-wide gender equality scores do not seem to be associated with the lower female participation in ICT program. And here you can see Algeria, India, Egypt. You can find a percentage of graduates of 50%. So this is why we call it paradox, ICT gender equality paradox. Why? It should be very interesting to understand the reason to study this paradox. This is the reason why I've shown you. And the last thing I want to say that I'm studying now the relationship between bias machine learning and gender. And if you are interested, the next in the next conversation, I can explain and speak about this, because as you can, gender innovation means to include the dimension of gender in the content of science. But if you study this in the field of artificial intelligence, there are many algorithms which they subsumes bias from gender, ethnic bias, and so on. And for instance, in many applications, face recognition, so on, they don't work in a neutral way. Thank you so much, and here are some links.
Thank you very, very much, Susanna, for this presentation. I don't know if we have some questions. I didn't see anything in the chat. Unless Nuria's congratulations for you. Does someone have a question or? No, yes, maybe.
Yeah, maybe I would like to ask Silvana. Silvana, do you think that the survey then that you made so generously available can be actually used if we wish to, if we wanted to, now onwards within the Arqus Alliance universities? Is it still something that we can use as a tool?
But I think it is actual. Maybe something can be changed, but what I think it could be used only some domains, some to check the situation with respect to some domain, because we have done a general research, but maybe focusing on some domain, you can find the right question to pose and to reduce this, but to have to get a gender an indicator.
Okay, excellent.
Indicator. But you can find in the book. I think that it's okay.
Of course, we would need your supervision.
You have to check this, for instance. It's clear. You have to check.
Okay, thank you. And I think it would be very interesting to know if our female students coming from the different parts of the world that you just showed through the ICT gender equality paradox are actually enrolled in ICT courses and so on. If there is a similar distribution locally in our universities, which is in line or not in line with what the ICT gender equality paradox was showing. I would be interested in knowing that, especially because we are full of stereotypes about the female, of course, not all unjustified, but maybe some are unjustified about the female and the gender equality situation in those countries. And then you see this paradox coming up and you are really kind of very surprised.
How many foreign students are studying at the School of Engineering? Maybe we can ask to the director of the school to ask some data about this and verify your question.
And the country they come from,
What I know is that the students, among the students, we started the path of engineering. There is a 33% of, in general, are women. But going in particular CV, you can find very low. In electronics, you find very, very low, but this is normal. But in computer science, you find 9%. It's very low. And this is a problem, not only for women, also for men. Now, my colleagues have understood that this is a problem. Is the problem.
Excellent. Thank you.
So thank you very much to all of you. I don't know if you have any more questions, or maybe we can just conclude this webinar. Yeah, I'm sure everybody's hungry now. So actually, I would like to thank you all for your participation, especially our speakers from today. And Stefan had to leave earlier, but thank you for your presentations and for the time that you spent with us this morning. Also, I would like to thank the task force member for their work in this group and the mapping when they mapped their university practices and policies, and also for the great assistance in the definition of the agenda and the promotion of today's event. Of course, a special thanks to our colleagues from Padua, Benedetta, Lucia, in the organization also of the webinar. This meeting was recorded, so it will be available on Arqus website. I send the link to all participants once it will be uploaded by the communication team of our projects. That's it about the task force group members. I have a meeting on next Tuesday morning. And hopefully all these presentations will be uploaded on Moodle platform and also on our private group. So So that's it. Thank you very, very much to everybody. I'm very glad for your participations. I don't know if Benedetta, do you have anything to say to conclude also? And Gustavo?
Just thank you so much. It was really amazing to see how much is going on, has been going on, how much we have. I think there are diamonds in the Arqus Alliance. And it's very nice to find out about this, that we have diamonds, and we are just here to actually join our strengths and share what we have done, possibly to make it bigger, wider, and available for the future alliances as well, because this is one of the missions we have. And I think we can close with the very nice words I see here in the chat. Happy International Day of Women and Girls in Science to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.